the two of them combined, which is not the legal way of combining them. So while there are two parcels, there's a third parcel that is just consists of A and B. And that's the one I think you're thinking of.
I mean, it does look like on the map that there are three parcel numbers, but perhaps two
There are,
parcels.
yeah, there are three numbers, but there's only two parcels,
Yes.
parcels. So, which gets kind of confusing. I understand. So the two parcels are, sublot 175, which is 722.14.098. And the other one, which is sublot 174, which is parcel number 2. We don't have the lot number. Yeah,
I mean, they're shown here as 96 and 97 on the one
yeah.
drawing
and
we have.
They have it as 96 and 97 as well, which does make it confusing, even though it is a single lot. I don't know how to explain it. The county engineer explained it to me as it was something of the Wild West a ways back, and some things were done that were not in accordance with county policy.
Well, I guess for me, it looks like they look like they're unbuildable at 20 feet. So to consolidate makes sense.
Right.
I guess I'm trying to help you here.
Yeah.
If left alone, you have a 20-foot, a 20-foot, and a 40-foot. On your 40-foot lot, you already have the house, and you have these other two very small slivers of lots that combined would make an 80-foot lot.
Correct.
And you're looking to do your addition on the vacant lot, correct?
But it would be attached to the original house.
Would you just relocate the driveway then?
We would relocate, most likely relocate the driveway.
Okay.
You're
Mr. Rychek, go ahead.
you're consolidating the house, the lot that your house is on with these other two parcels.
With
Is that
the other,
correct?
with the other subplot 174, yes,
So the whole thing will be one parcel,
correct.
including your house,
Correct.
because you said something earlier that drew my attention. Okay, now I'm clear.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Casey?
Yeah, I guess just a real quick question and probably for our engineer. And if you had questions on the legal description, we have a revised legal description. Is it meeting the calls right now that are on the plat in front of us? Or is it a different plat that the new calls would be on?
I have the new proposed legal description did you want to?
I just didn't know if it-
So most likely it's the overall distances.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be like the 20. 80 feet,
Okay.
if they're at the same bearing.
Okay.
So every time there's a difference in bearing, it would be a different.
Right.
So I could look at the legals and make sure that it agrees with.
I guess my question was just make it contingent on
Right.
the plat matches the legal description. That's gonna get.
But hopefully the county, they made sure the closure, it closed and everything.
Yeah,
Okay.
based on the survey from Steve.
Yeah.
Okay, well then, if there's is there any comment from the public on this? I don't expect any, but I thought I'd ask. All right, then, well then, I would move to approve for recommendation of city council, the application from George Turnbull and Lauren Vogel, 2367 Edgerton Road, seeking recommendation of lot consolidation of parcels 722-14-096, 722-14097, 722-14098, being 2367 Edgerton Road into one parcel, contingent upon the city engineer's review and approval of the legal description being consistent with the plat. Mr. Rychek,
Second.
second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Mrs. Thomas, we call the roll.
Mayor Brennan,
Yes.
Mr. Rychek.
Yes.
Mr. Casey.
Yes.
Mr. Rath.
Yes.
Yeah, very good. This is approved, this is recommended then by the planning commission to go to city council. Presumably, we don't have another regular council meeting until September, but I anticipate a, uh, a, uh, a special meeting of council later this month, perhaps on the 23rd or some other date later in July. So
It'd be wonderful if we could.
yeah, it'd be nice to add it on if we have a special, and I anticipate there's several matters that we want to address before September.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, very good. Yes, Mrs. Thomas, if you could let Mr. Turnbull know when we do set the special. Okay, very good. We move on to item B, presentation for discussion purposes only from Michael Augustidis of Vocon regarding the concept drawings for proposed long-term vision for the mixed-use buildings / district at the corner of Warrensville Center Road and Hillbrook Road. This is for discussion purposes only and no action is to be taken. You would state your name for the record and you may proceed.
My name is Michael Augustidis. I'm an architect and project director for Vocon. And with me tonight is Nick Cardianos, who is the developer and our client.
Okay.
And computer operator for me.
Very good. Very good. Good to see you too, Nick.
So I just want to say thank you, first of all, for taking the time to review this and provide some commentary. I just, this is an exciting project for us and, high level, we understand that there is a zoning code transition that is being considered for the city. And we're kind of in that middle time zone where we're not quite sure which of the zoning codes we should use to do the feasibility study and the design study. What we assumed was we should look at the new zoning code, assuming that it would be adopted eventually, and design the project based on the criteria within that zoning code, understanding that it's in a draft form, hasn't been formally adopted, and there may be changes. So hence the request for a review with this committee to see if we can get some feedback and some direction on how we should proceed with the project. The project itself is located at the corner of Warrensville and Hillbrook. I'm going to pause there for just 1 second. I know that we had submitted some drawings earlier that you have in front of you. There are some minor corrections to what we are presenting on the screen. No design changes. There were just some additional notes that we provided and so forth. So what we have on the screen is what I'm going to be referring to. And as I indicated, the properties are located at the corner of Warrensville and Hillbrook. There are 4 parcels that our client owns and is interested in at some point consolidating and doing a new project. The project itself is a 4-story building with an elevator. Total building area is a little over 36,000 square feet. And we are looking to do a total of 36 apartment units and a small retail component on the first floor. The new zoning code does have some criteria and some requirements for retail on the first floor. There are some challenges associated with the amount of retail that's required and the amount of parking that can actually be put on the site. So what we have developed here, we feel, is a good balance between what would be a viable retail component or retail use on the first floor with the appropriate number of parking spots, both on site and what currently exists on Warrensville. The site plan that you see here kind of reflects how we would position the building. It is within all the setback requirements for the site. I won't go into a lot of detail here, but as you can see, we try to articulate and indicate the most important design components. As I said, the setbacks are all met. The building length, the maximum length is 150 feet, and you can see how we have shown that on the site as well, on the building. There are 4 parcels that would be consolidated. And you can see they're a little bit of an odd configuration, much narrower at Hillbrook and wider as we head south, which kind of provides some opportunities and some challenges. But we feel that, based on the property that is under control, this is a very efficient And as you'll see in a little bit, the renderings we feel is a very, very contextual solution that I think would fit very, very well within the neighborhood. And just to give you some high level criteria here, number of residential units, we have 11 one-bedroom units, 10 one-bedroom plus den units, and then we have 15 two-bedroom units. Like I said, total unit count is 36 units. We've provided parking for 57 spaces, and that includes the ADA compliant parking spots. The required number of parking spots for the residential is 44, and the required parking for retail is 6. And as I indicated previously, we are also taking advantage of the parking that is along Warrensville as well. We are adjacent to some residential homes. We want to take screening very seriously. So we are looking to do a 6-foot high privacy fence along the residential neighbors and also provide some evergreen landscaping to provide not only a visual buffer, but also provide a way to prevent car headlights from shining into neighbors' yards. We want to make sure that the neighbors are respected and that we don't, provide any kind of interference in their privacy. There is an opportunity for us to do a little bit of an amenity space on the south end of the building. You can see there's a little bit of some landscaping. These are all things that we can consider as we move forward with the development of the design. The next image is the first floor plan of the building. And you can see how we configured the retail component. We have about 1,800 square feet of retail that could leverage some of the hardscape in the front of the building or some outdoor seating. There's some, yard area on the north side of that could also be developed for some outdoor seating. We wanted to provide retail at this end and we wanted to connect to the back part of the parking area so that loading and unloading can occur without having to walk through the building. It was a convenience thing that we thought would be appropriate for a small retail use.
Mr. Augustidis,
Yes.
I don't want to, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm stepping out of the meeting and Mr. Bryant's going to take over. I have a family emergency I must tend to. I will review the recording later. I have talked to Nick previously, but I wanted you to be aware why I was leaving.
Thank you. I appreciate
Okay,
that.
thank you. Please carry on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Not personal.
Sorry. Okay. So you can see there's still a little bit of design development that needs to occur with the lobby. We'll obviously have mailroom delivery areas for the lobby itself. We do have a trash room within the building so that the trash is compacted and then taken out to a dumpster. We want to try to control that as much as we can. And then the rest of the floor plan is basically a layout for the individual apartment units. We wanted to create a strong presence along Warrensville and make it feel comfortable. We provided a couple of the units have small patios so people can actually step out, sit on a chair, and be engaged with the sidewalk. Any questions on the first floor plan?
Not yet. Yeah, not yet. You'll have an opportunity.
Yeah, we're more than happy to answer any questions that anybody would have. Next floor plan is really just a typical upper level residential layout. You can see how the efficiencies of the layout work. We also have, there was a requirement for how the front elevation of the building has a certain percentage that's recessed, and we create some interesting architecture along the front of the building. We've met that requirement within the zoning code as well. So this is a typical layout for levels 2 through 4. The next image is a perspective that shows what the building could look like from just north of the building, looking south. You can see how the elevation has been articulated to kind of break up the mass, try to give it some traditional components, so to speak. We have a base that the building kind of rests on. There's a bottom, there's a middle, and there's a top, I guess is the best way to describe that. It's a very contextual type of a solution with brick and some hardy plank, hardy panels that obviously would be up for a design review with the appropriate committees. You can see on the left side of the image some umbrellas. Again, we're trying to reference the ability for the retail component to have some outdoor seating. And you can see there's some additional landscaping that we would provide along the street. The next image is just a kind of a two-dimensional rendering of the front of the building. The little white box that you see kind of at on the left side is what would be the elevator shaft coming up through the roof. Again, simply kind of beginning to illustrate how the breakdown of the building actually occurs to give it a better scale and have it fit within the context of the neighborhood. The next image is from the south looking north. And you can see how, in addition to articulating the facade in a way that breaks down the mass, we also have the building in a way that provides a material composition in the front, which is brick and the hardy board. And then in the back half, we're looking at using a different material. It could very well be a metal panel, it could be hardy plank, but the intent is to show a breakdown of the mass. So again, it's all about getting the building to scale accordingly and fit into the neighborhood. The next image is what a person would experience walking along the building along Warrensville. Again, on the left, you'll see what we're calling a small retail shop. And the amount of space that is in front of that, we would look to propose a different type of a hardscape material. And what I mean by that is really a paver kind of a material to help identify the entrance into the building and also identify the retail use, so that if there's a need to put some tables and chairs out there, they have a nice surface to work with. You can see the additional landscaping along the right between Warrensville and the sidewalk. And as you look further down, you can begin to see the patios that are going to be on two of the units. And we have a better image of that on the next slide. And you can see what those little porches can look like. A very traditional kind of residential feel. And people, and these are usable porches. They're not there for decoration. They do have access from the patios or from the apartments inside to the patio. This is, I think, a very, very nice feature, and really gives apartment dwellers the opportunity to connect with the street activity. So I think it's going to introduce a level of activity and comfort, I believe, for this part of Warrensville. The next elevation or rendering is an illustration of what the back of the building could look like. We are showing a number of Juliet type balconies. Those are where the sliders open up. There's no balcony per se, but there's a guard and a rail there to keep people from jumping. And it does give a little bit more scale and texture to the back of the building as well. We would wrap the brick around back to the utility areas and to the access into the building for retail and for the retail component as well. On the far left, you can kind of see a little bit of a rendered area with trees and some landscaping. We're showing, you can barely catch on the edge some people sitting in a small sitting area that would just give people within the building a place to go outside and sit down. And that's kind of where we're at. That's the end of the presentation. I'm sure there are questions related to the site. You can just get us to the site plan.
Does anyone on the commission have any questions?
Have you identified any retail tenant yet?
No, we have not. But we know that it's part of a the zoning code requirement. It requires, because of the way this part of the site is zoned, there is a retail requirement for the building. And that's why we are showing it.
Are you familiar with the type of retail that can be going in there?
Ideally, we'd love to see, we're showing it as a bakery that serves coffee. Something that is more neighborhood based so that people in the neighborhood could come and grab a cup of coffee or grab, a pastry. We don't see that retail use as specific for the building only. We see it as a neighborhood amenity and something that could help create another thing for neighbors to enjoy.
Mr. Rott?
Thank you for the presentation. So I chair the Economic Development Committee, which is overseeing the new zoning code. So I'm probably most familiar with the new zoning code. And I think conceptually, let's just start there. This is really the direction that the committee was going for Warrensville Center Road redo. Conceptually, we're looking at multifamily residential along that corridor, up against the street with major intersections having that mixed use component. So this satisfies the intent of that zoning subsection. One thing I do want to let you know though, and I'm noticing it as I go through site plan and all the other plans and your code information along the side here, it kind of goes up to the limit of what we were what the restrictions were, except on a couple little things which I want to pick on in a minute. But primarily the one thing is, I don't know if you had access to that new zoning code draft, but there's a site plan, there's like an aerial that shows where the mixed use versus the residential occurs. On your property here, the top two, I guess the most northern parcels is what is considered the Warrensville Center mixed use section. And the two southern parcels is the Warrensville Center residential. And the reason I want to bring that up is they have differing code requirements. And from what I'm seeing here and understanding, it looks like you went with the mixed use all the way through in terms of your allowable height and parking, et cetera.
Right.
So I think that's really the one piece that I'm having most trouble with is on the building height. Looking at just the Warrensville Center residential component, there's not a number of feet as a requirement, but it's 3.5 stories. So I think the intent here is from the street is to appear as 3 stories, maybe tucking in within the roof, that extra story, which is what the code is pointing out here. However, on the mixed use portion, the height's only 55 feet. So it looks like what you had done here with your drawing is just using that as your benchmark. I think what we'll need to do if we're going to consider that is understanding that those two southern parcels should really follow that residential matrix as opposed to the mixed use. So it does give you a little more, it's a little more stringent. How you would handle that top level, you're beyond that height. And the only other thing I could see that went against the new zoning was the parking count. You're correct on the minimum. I think you show the minimum of 44 plus the 6 for retail. That calculates right. You're showing 48 spaces in the back, which is where it belongs, in the back. Right. You're short 2 spaces. We don't count street parking here, and we don't have overnight parking in our city, so it really can't be used for overnight use. I get the retail is not open at night.
Right.
I get it. But just something to consider there. I just think that you got to figure out a way to shrink the height or conceal a fourth floor, whether it be tucked into the roof. If you go in on all sides, maybe you're not going to have a double loaded corridor there, but that's something you're going to have to think about if you need to accomplish a 4-level structure.
And just to clarify, it's showing 46-foot height.
Right.
Okay.
46 was what you're proposing.
Right.
And if I go off the new code, again, it's not approved yet. But if it were to be approved, that is showing 3.5 stories. It didn't give a number of feet.
What?
The building height max on the new zoning code
Is what?
was indicating 3.5 stories.
And we're at 4.
You're at 4.
So we either revise the design or go for a variance. I would assume that would be an opportunity as well.
Give a variance.
Under-
can't we?
Understood. This is one of the first projects that would
Sure,
follow
no,
the
no.
zoning code. So
Yeah.
I think our hope would be whatever comes before us would be variance free. This is the very first one. So if we have variances, then there may be something wrong with our code or there may be something wrong with the design. So I think where we are heading, and we have more committee meetings, so I don't know what the final outcome is going to be. We have another meeting tomorrow
Yeah.
to finalize draft 1
Mhm.
of, could be 2, 3 drafts before we go to public hearings. So at this point, there's been strong feedback for Warrensville Center Road having multifamily and mixed use. So this is on the right track. I think that was just the only thing that stood out as going against the residential component, not necessarily the mixed use component. With regard to your setbacks, it follows the rules. I don't necessarily like the rules that are proposed. I've mentioned in the committee meeting, actually shortening that side yard setback. I think if you had to remove that 4th floor, but you still needed to have some unit count that fits your financing, perhaps we look at shrinking some of that setback along the side. Maybe you're gonna be able to get 2 more units front and back at 3 levels, at 6.
Right.
So you're not losing too much. I'm just trying to make this work, but it has to also work with the surrounding neighborhood, because there's, single family homes behind. And I think that's why if you look at the map, and I don't have a way of getting it on the screen, but if you want to look here, I'll blow it up for you. On this map here, the red sections is what's mixed use, so the corners, and the orange being residential. And the reason they were color coded in such the way is that these 4 parcels here on Meadowbrook, which are single family homes, their backyard would abut multifamily as opposed to mixed use. So I believe that's why they were very careful in the way they color coded it the way they did. But that's my suggestion. I think we're on the right track. I appreciate that you're putting seating for the retail component. To me, the southern part of the property, which is that side yard setback, just seems large. It meets the rule. Just seems like what's really gonna go on there. I almost wish we could kind of slide that down and give more space for outdoor eating for that retail component, but that's something we can discuss. The dumpster, I'm not sure is in the right location. That's something we'll have to discuss when we get into more of the design process. Additional screening around that property. I see you have the hedge on the one side, could we get that on all sides that abut residential? I think would be important. But the other thing to consider, and again, this is the direction the committee wanted to go, is getting these buildings up as close to the street as possible. This would be the first one. So it's gonna look a little out of place, and you understand that.
Sure.
As you were designing this, it's well beyond that first house. So perhaps that 20-foot setback is required to kind of give that buffer, because I think eventually these houses will come down and more of this would come up. That was certainly the intent with the new zoning code. So although it may look out of place now, it might not always. So maybe that 20-foot setback is essential to kind of bridge
Yeah,
that.
the only concern I would have with a deeper front yard setback is the amount of parking that would be eliminated.
I was talking about the side.
Oh, you took,
Yeah,
okay.
no,
got it,
keep
got
the
it.
front yard
Yeah,
setback.
okay.
Yeah. You're good there. I think, well, I was always arguing, I think 20 for the side
Got it. Okay.
between residential and residential is a little extreme because you're gonna build, not you, but someone would eventually build south of that, a similar 150-foot long building. You're now gonna have 40 feet
40
between.
feet
It's
between
just,
the
it, to
buildings.
me,
Right.
it's silly, but because it's the first one, it perhaps makes sense. And that's my feedback.
I'm a little concerned about the proposed parking. I got a feeling it's not gonna be enough for either the apartments or the retail, and you haven't even identified the retail. And I certainly wouldn't, I put a restriction on this, that there be no alcohol sold, so it wouldn't be a bar or a carryout, because then the whole neighborhood will go crazy.
Yeah.
If we have a bar in there, open till 2:30.
I don't think that is even in the realm of possibilities. having a
Good,
bar
because
in there.
I think we're gonna make it in the realm of impossibility. But the parking leaves me concerned. I don't think there's enough there. You got, what, 36 units?
We have 36 units and we have 40, uh, 48 spaces for those
36.
36 units.
So assuming if everybody had a car or two cars,
Well,
there
that,
wouldn't be enough space.
right, that's why we're limiting the number of 2-bedroom units. Most of the units are 1-bedroom units, 1 bedroom with a den, which would, in our minds, is kind of an office function for the den. So the anticipation is that those tenants would only have one car. I don't-
That'd be something that when you finally make the proposal, we're gonna look at very closely.
Yeah, and that's the reason we broke it down. As you can see here, the number, we have 22 1-bedroom, 21 1-bedroom units and only 15 2-bedroom units.
Yeah, but two bed, still could be two people to an apartment.
Correct, for the
And they
2-bedroom
could
unit.
have two cars, you're not,
Correct.
I think, gotta look at that more carefully. Expand it, or if you have visitors, it's gonna be a real cluster back there. And the retail. Not gonna have enough space, you're not gonna be able to park. I don't remember if there's parking on Warrensville during the day, in that location there is.
There is, yeah. Anybody else?
I just have one
I
more
have a question.
comment. Oh, you mentioned that the retail was required. I don't remember seeing that it's required. I know it's permitted by right in mixed use, but I don't see that it's a requirement, having a retail component.
I'm not sure.
When I was looking through this again, I'm looking through the new code again. I don't,
May wanna think, instead of the retail, put in two more units or whatever.
You're okay. We're okay. Yeah.
I mean, I would,
You may wanna think that way.
If you're trying to satisfy a retail for the draft zoning code, it's very, very, very. Especially when the bulk of the retail now is on this end and this end,
Mhm.
people are gonna have to walk. We would prefer not to. We're just trying to satisfy and come in with a project that is in line with what the city wants and evolve Warrensville, but complement and enhance the existing structures and not structure community from an so if you guys don't want retail, we're fine with it, because we just want to provide good residential housing options for the open market and anyone that's.
okay, so it does say, I apologize. That, I'm not saying I didn't want retail. I'm just saying you said it was required, but I do see one thing here about within the Warrensville Center mixed use sub area, residential uses shall only be permitted in mixed buildings containing non-residential ground floor uses, except for residential entrances and lobbies. So I perhaps that's where you saw that.
Correct.
Correct.
Would that allow an office instead of a,
It would be a non-residential ground floor use, I would argue.
so that's another possibility. So,
Answer your question. You don't shop, insurance, coffee shop.
I have a question. So you're gonna perform a lot consolidation? And,
Correct.
so that then one lot's going to span two zoning districts. So which, zoning district would apply to that legal address of that lot now? So if you had a legal address in the North District,
Mr. Ross?
that's just bringing it up for discussion, that's what this is.
I would say whichever is the most stringent is the code you're working off of. Is that correct?
Well,
That is a way to, figure something out, like you said, when there's a conflict, but I don't know that that's
The only
stated here.
problem with that would be, then we would be mandated to include a retail component on the residential side as well.
Right.
So that's not gonna work. And the
Right.
way I've I've had this situation before, in fact, working on a project now that had 3 different zonings, designations for the parcel. And it was really just sitting down with the planning department and hammering out an agreement that worked for everybody. It wasn't us making the assumption that this is the way we're going to proceed. We would sit down with the planning commission and really just talk through what made the most sense for the project and what made the most sense for the community. So I don't think there's a hard and fast answer for that tonight, honestly. But yeah, I think it's something that we would work with the committee to resolve.
Building you can have. There's 4 parcels here, you bought 150, exactly. You said 3, about the 40, get the 150. So if you have 150 foot building, means 2 zoning districts, the way that's laid out is a little, so we went guided towards commercial design with it. I appreciate your feedback, I think that's great, but I think from a strategy and planning standpoint, can't have one building in 2 different zoning and say this half is this half is that. Building goes under 1, so that's why we thought, okay, let's take it under corner because it's on the corner. If we just say, okay, we're not gonna do the 2 corner, we're just gonna do the 2 middle, and then we're gonna be all residential. So that's where our thought came in. Appreciate your feedback and your detailed comments on it. But, I think there's the answer. This whole presentation goal is just an open discussion with comments. And it's been, informative.
Right, and you bring up a good point. And when I originally looked at the renderings and I saw 4 floors, I was like, wait a minute, we weren't doing 4 floors on the streets. And that's when I realized you're taking into account just mixed use. So perhaps we have to kind of make that more subtle for the people who
I
live behind.
don't disagree.
Yeah,
Another aspect of maybe some background, I've been investing in your banks for over 10 years. I have more properties on the bill than anyone else, so I strategically looked at these parcels. And these are not only the ones that are contiguous and would allow for development that's feasible, but they also have the most depth that's conducive to get surface parking that's required under the code. It's already stringent. So this is one of the only parcels that will allow for consolidated 4 parcel project that meets 99.9% of the draft code.
Right.
If you take any other developer that goes in and buys 3 in a row, all the other parcels, if you look at them, are much skinnier and much, not skinnier, but they're not as deep. They're 0.15 acres. These 2 here allow for that depth, which gives you math equation to allow. And it just so happens it's on the corner, so it falls under the red
Mixed use.
mixed use. And to your point of the depth perception, because we have that much space between the back neighbor, helps soften that blow a little bit, rather than the back neighbors staring up at.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, if we could hear from the public, if you'll step up and state your name and give us your address to the podium and.
Hello, I'm Patrick Coburn. I live at 4033 Meadowbrook. On your sheet here, my property is 027, and although it's not marked, 029 behind it. So I am one of the properties that abut this development. Before we go on, the prior owner piled a lot of dead branches at the back of his lot. Well, there's now a 6-foot high pile of kindling wood. You could get rid of that. That's the fire hazard. Okay. So I have a couple, I actually had a number of comments, but apparently some of them are better suited for the zoning board. So I will cover the ones specific to this project. I believe everybody is in agreement that, University Heights is a small city. This is our main street. This is what we want to anchor the city. And what we do is going to control University Heights, all of University Heights, for the next 50 years. Why I bring this up is you may all recognize this. If you don't, it's at Meadowbrook and Lee. It's at Fairhill. It's in a dozen places and a dozen projects. It is as bland as you can get. Now, I realize it's up to the planning board to try and come up with cohesive elements that will guide developers. But if this goes up in 10 years, this is just going to be one more strip development among a sea of them. Lee Road, for instance. So that's my first point. My second one is, I'm not sure who's actually walked the neighborhood, but Hillbrook is at the top of a hill. From Hillbrook, it goes downhill to Meadowbrook. So the residents will be looking up. Now, you've been touching on this, but as a resident, I'll reinforce this. So what appears to be a 4-story building from street level is, for the residents behind it, going to be more like a 5-story building, because we're going to be looking up into that. Retail, I think you've been hammering on that. I will just say my 2 cents worth. With a major development at Fairmount Circle, with a major development at Cedar Center, having 14 standalone units of retail, I think that needs to be better thought out. I can't see, I could easily see in 5 years those retail elements being vacant. And back to the height. I was mentioning that Hillbrook's at the top of the hill. Meadowbrook is at the bottom of the hill, and a taller building there has substantially less impact on the neighborhood than a tall building at Hillbrook. I'll just put that on. 2 things about the parking. One, as a resident, Meadowbrook is called Meadowbrook for a very good reason. There's a really big brook underneath it. I am concerned about runoff. I'm not sure, I'm not a zoning person. I don't know, but as my understanding is, there has to be a certain amount of buffer space between a development and parking lot. From what this looks like, this looks like parking goes all the way back to the back property line. And I'm not a zoning person, but as my understanding, there has to be a buffer. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think, the runoff, when you get that fully developed, you're going to have a lot of hardscape. You know, you have the John Carroll parking lot going in. You'd have all these properties with, you know, building and parking lot. The runoff is going to be an issue, and I'm not sure that that was addressed when the zoning was being thought of. That is a major concern for the residents. I want this project to succeed. What I want more than anything is something that anchors the neighborhood, but doesn't, you know, we don't have a generic cookie cutter development in the front and single family residences in the back. We want something that merges it. And if I could throw out a suggestion, there's nothing in the law above earth, underneath earth, or anything else that every single square inch of Warrensville has to be developed. I would suggest, and this is just a suggestion, take one of those lots along Warrensville, turn it into a pocket park, put in swings and a, you know, slide. That amenity by itself improves the entire development and benefits the residents that live in that area. So that's my 2 cents worth. Do you ladies and gentlemen have any questions of me? Yes. I would,
Tell us what projects around town that have gone right there, so you guys would be proud of. That's-
I would be glad, you know, I'm not a developer, so I'm not sure where every single, I know Meadowbrook and Lee because I pass it all the
Yeah,
time. But I will keep an eye out. I'm assuming that this isn't going to, you know, go up in the next 2 months. So I think we got some time.
Yeah, Mr. Colbert, you mentioned the stormwater runoff. So one of the requirements of the project would be that they would have to retain all of their stormwater on the property. We already have regulations in effect that would allow for that, so, or require it.
I would be interested in seeing how that works. As the water that flows to Meadowbrook flows through my lot. So I had some familiarity with.
Yep. Yeah, the requirement, they can't make the situation worse, and the engineer, when the time comes, will do the calculations to make sure they're complying with that requirement.
All right. Like I said, I'm not a zoning person. It's my understanding that there has to be a buffer between my property and parking lots. Mr. Rock, if you can perhaps address that, I would be glad to hear it. I'll sit down and let somebody else if there's no further. One other thing is, and I appreciate the pickle you're in trying to develop this, but I would think larger apartments would be more likely to attract longer term residents. That's just my 2 cents worth. So.
All right, anyone else from the audience? Come on up, give us your name, please.
Hi, my name is Deborah Newman and I am Pat's neighbor. Actually, if we look at this,
Sure.
GIS,
Your address for the record?
oh, I'm sorry. My address is 4027 Meadowbrook. And on this here, I am, let me see, I had it before. Parcel 721-04-026. I too have big concerns when it comes to runoff. As Pat said, let it rain 2 days and you see streams coming through our yard, running down my stairs, running to the front. That's 2 days of rain. You get more rain and there are pockets of rain. Presently, there are high trees back there. We are buffered by 2-car garages in the back. So I know from trees that have left my property, you move a tree and now again, there's less roots and dirt and all that to absorb this. So I have great concerns because for 15 years, I've been trying to figure out what we could do to minimize some of that water so I can actually enjoy my backyard when it doesn't rain. Now, there have been solutions where they will come in and they will draw these French drains. But I have nice mature trees that I enjoy, the cool, just the aesthetics of these trees. So that is a big concern. But when I looked at this drawing, I had a bigger concern by all those parking lots that seem to go right up to the back of my property. Again, presently, there are about 4 or 5, maybe 5 is an exaggeration, 3 or 4 large garages before you get into these multifamily houses. I'm horrified at looking at all those parking spaces. And I know it mentioned screening in the back. In the back of my house, I have a, how can I say this? I have 3 walls of windows. I think I have 15 windows that look out the back. Because of all those tall trees, I'm not looking into the property, other people's homes. But I can't imagine 3 or 4 floors that I would have the privacy that I have now. And my thought is, I don't know, even talking about retail, but just the activity. Again, looking at this GIS viewer, this is right in the back of my property. Yeah, I don't have any, I don't come with solutions, unfortunately, because this is, well, not that I'd have a solution. I'm not an architect. But I'm horrified. I just don't see having people come in and out, which is a very quiet neighborhood, young families where this would just be conducive to the property that I bought 15 years ago. I don't want to have to sound like not in my neighborhood, but again, it's not like the building itself doesn't really concern me, but all that parking, it does concern me. So those were kind of the points. Drainage and privacy, I just don't see 6 feet helping me at all. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Want to?
Height requirement for the southern end. My name's Howard Coburn. I'm a University Heights resident. I am not an abutter.
Speaking of the mic, would you please?
What's your address, Mr. Coburn?
2620 Eaton Road.
Thank you.
I was listening to the talk about the southern end and the height requirement there. And I was looking at the drawing, the proposal, and this whole building has a flat roof. And I'm wondering, with the road sloping south, is it going to be, the flat roof is going to be 35 feet on the slope down the hill? Meaning that as you go north, it's gotta be lower? Or is it gonna be stepped to accommodate the hills? The drawing doesn't seem to handle the hill. I mean, anybody that knows that stretch of Hillbrook, it runs downhill from Hillbrook to Meadowbrook. And, you know, if you're just walking it, it's a very noticeable hill. I don't know if you can get 150 feet of level before it starts going down that hill. That's my 2 cents worth. It's just another zoning requirement that you guys are gonna have to deal with.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark McCarron. I reside at 2386 Fenwood Road. With this proposed zoning and property build, I will be staring at a parking lot in my front yard upon it first being built, and then likely one in my backyard by the time it moves further down the street from what I've seen from the plans and the bigger picture there. And I've been a resident and a homeowner in University Heights for 6 years now. I'm here tonight to voice significant concerns about the proposed rezoning along Warrensville Center Road. And I believe these changes are financially irresponsible, detrimental to residents, and misaligned with our community's unique character. First, this rezoning will have a negative impact on the aesthetic, the privacy, and the noise, and overall property values. A study from Atlantic Bay Mortgage Group estimated that these type of factors at a neighboring property can even reduce property values by up to 10% and almost always make it harder to sell. And considering the average home price in University Heights is valued around $300,000, each affected homeowner could face a $30,000 loss. That's pretty tangible and significant. And that definitely is a financial impact to the residents that cannot be overlooked. Second, we already bear some of Ohio's highest local property taxes. And without concrete proof and financial benefit, adding more commercial property and apartment spaces only risks further burdening homeowners with covering more costs for wear and tear on the infrastructure rather than reinvesting in our more impactful initiatives. Third, given current economic conditions, this project is particularly ill-timed. Commercial vacancy rates nationally are at historic highs, over about 20% according to Moody's Analytics in 2024. And apartment supply nationally are at healthy levels, according to RealPage Analytics, representing no significant demand to warrant taking on this big of a commitment and rezoning for that big portion of Warrensville Center Road and overall the costly development of these projects. It's financially risky to proceed without clear economic certainty. Fourth, we have existing zones specifically designed for commercial and residential developments that remain underutilized. Specifically talking about University Square, and of course with John Carroll moving more student housing onto campus, and of course the development already going on there, this opens up more rental vacancies without the need to build along the current residents that would ultimately potentially be built or brought down by this zoning change. Redeveloping existing zones reduces the soft building costs, such as getting all the permits and all that kind of stuff, and the infrastructure, and also negatively impacts the current city's infrastructure. It makes practical and fiscal sense to prioritize existing areas first, again, such as University Square, saving taxpayer dollars and avoiding unnecessary disruptions just to the community during the whole entire building process. Fifth, our identity as the city of beautiful homes is crucial. And this zoning change creates the real risk of diluting our unique character and appeal from seeing what the proposed buildings would look like, and really just increasing commercial with the increase in the commercial apartment developments all down the road versus our classic brick houses and just the beautiful homes across the city. And then lastly, changes to Warrensville Center Road affect most University Heights residents due to its central position. So the increased traffic, noise, reduced privacy aren't minor inconveniences, and those substantial alterations affect our daily lives and community appeal pretty much across everyone. Everyone's driving down there or walking by at some point in their days. In conclusion, approving this rezone without thorough bigger picture financial and impact to the residents that live here and the proper community input, I think is premature and irresponsible. I want to keep University Heights as a great place for people to invest in, start families, and become long-term residents. Let's first focus on revitalizing underused spaces we already have zoned for these type of properties, protecting our residents' investments, and preserving the unique identity that makes University Heights a desirable place to live.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the audience?
Hi, my name is Zachary Coppice. I live on 2366 Fenwood Road. And an argument I've heard from the council members online, as well as some residents, is that we should turn University Heights into a walkable city like Lakewood or Tremont. My counter argument would be you should move to a city like Lakewood or Tremont. I choose to live on a quiet street with quiet neighbors and beautiful homes. I assume you chose your homes for similar reasons, and I hope none of them are in any threat of being overshadowed by a 4-story apartment with a direct view into your children's bedrooms. I pray your homes aren't in any threat of having your backyard connect to a dirty parking lot or have those homes lose up to 10% of their value. So when I see members of this council say that change can be difficult, you mean for us, not you. There are countless young families looking to purchase starter homes and a whole street lined with them. I assume that the people who got the most money out of renting from those students have run the milk dry and are now looking to get a few more bucks out of the properties. This is my home. It is my first home I've ever bought. It's not inherited or purchased with a trust fund. I served overseas in the military. I went to college. I worked in kitchens and bars until I could earn 2 degrees and become a teacher and counselor. This home is the accumulation of every drop of blood and sweat I've ever shed, so I hope you understand that it will be with that same tenacity that I will defend it. Finally, I would like to also propose that no votes on the rezoning proposition take place until residents have had ample time to consult with legal counsel and inform other residents of the proposals in the event we would need to begin a petition. I fear that the lack of communication between residents and city council was by design. Thank you.
Mike Meliscus, 2592 University Boulevard. As I've spoken before this body many times before about parking minimums, they are detrimental to both the developer and what they're trying to do and to the residents that have to be near to it. You've heard many of the complaints relative to runoff, which is made worse by parking, by having parking right up against the property line. And both of those can be ameliorated by having less parking, right? So if they don't have to put as much parking on the property, they don't have to put the parking spaces right up against there. They can put in some green space that would help with the runoff, with the heat islands that are going to be created by parking lots, et cetera, et cetera. There's also the element that the retail is likely to be using the spaces during the day, which is when residents are least likely to be home. As well as the street parking. I realize we don't have that overnight, but daytime parking would also be covered for the retail element of that. So, we still have time to fix that in the zoning, that we can reduce the minimums that make it more flexible for us to meet the needs of the residents and the developers. And so if they're able to cut out 8 to 10 parking spaces based on, more progressive versions of parking minimums that many other cities of our size and density are adopting to encourage this sort of development without eating up tons of space just for parking that doesn't serve any purpose. That if we put that into the zoning, then everybody's able to redo the plans in a way that's really helpful. So it gets it off people's backs on the properties. It allows for like I said, bigger green space so that you can do more seating for the retail element, or a pocket park could be part of the project plan itself rather than forcing the city to buy those things to create those buffers. So I really do think that it answers a lot of the residents' concerns by just reducing that really unnecessary parking minimums, because that's a pretty old relic of old city designs that's not a current plan. Most cities are moving away from that, and in fact, many are eliminating parking minimums entirely and leaving it up to the developer to really understand what they're trying to do there and what they need. Because developer's not interested in putting in 5 parking spaces and just being like, good luck trying to find something, because then they'll never be able to sell their units. So they have a better understanding of what they really need to put in there. And so the less that we can force them to, the more flexibility that we provide. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Bustos. Sure.
Pat Coburn again. Follow-up question to what he was talking about. John Carroll's putting in a lot of parking. Would they be agreeable to some sort of arrangement for residents who have 2 cars to park a second one on that 300 lot space? That's something you will have to determine, but that would seem to help out with the parking minimum. And, as far as I can see, there's no real downside. So,
Yeah, if I remember, I don't think it's 300 spaces. It's less, but I could be wrong. But
it was 300 spaces on the North Gateway drawings that were online. I don't
okay,
know what it-
maybe for both of them with the retail, okay. But yeah, we know they have parking problems on their campus, so. Anyone else from the audience? Mr. Augustinus, you want to? Some more remarks?
Thank you. And I really have to appreciate all the comments that came from all the neighbors. A couple things. The questions that were expressed as it relates to the zoning code are, really things that we can't control as far as the project is concerned. I mean, we have to follow what the zoning code allows us to do, and we try to do a little bit better than that. So the zoning questions, there's not much that we really can do. The question on runoff, which is a very good question, is typically controlled. We have stormwater retention tanks that we actually bury under the parking lot that would absorb a significant amount of that runoff and then slowly discharge it into the public storm source. So the runoff is going to be controlled in any kind of a project that would get built. So it just doesn't run off into the street or into the neighbors' yards. It's controlled, it's stored, and then it's slowly released into the public storm source. So I just wanted to kind of provide that clarification so that question can be kind of taken off the table.
You would need to ensure that water stays in your lot.
There would be a curb at the edge of the parking lot, so no water would run off into any of the adjoining parcels.
What about a holding tank?
The holding tank would be underground. Yeah, everything would drain to a catch basin that drops into the stormwater retention tank.
You might need a little bit more buffer area around the parking lot to do swales, just to make sure that your water, if it's not staying on your property, is directed to the
Well,
street.
everything would slope to the middle part of the site. It would slope away from the adjoining parcels. There's a curb that would prevent water from going there. And I do want to also add that, when we were doing the site plan, we did have a review with, I can't remember the lieutenant's name, but he was the fire chief regarding fire access around the building as well. So we had to take those minimum widths and drive lane widths into consideration when we were doing the site layout. So we wanted to make sure that a fire truck can access the building in a way that they could effectively control any kind of a fire event in the building. So it wasn't just us saying this, we needed to have this particular width in this particular, area. That was also driven partly by the information that we received from the fire chief.
More questions or comments?
I think your parking lot you might want to take a look at that for a better flow. Like there's that one lane of parking on the south side. Those cars, like, if they could loop around might be better. I know you're taking away parking spaces,
And
however,
that's the challenge, right?
you
We
know.
looked at probably 5 or 6 different layouts that would still get close to the count that we needed to have. We felt this was the best solution. I mean, if we can reduce the count, that obviously makes it a lot easier for getting in a layout that works a little bit more effectively and pulls the parking away from the adjoining parcels. But we also need to meet the requirements for the kind of tenants that we're going to be attracting. So it's not an easy solution, and we want to come up with a solution that works for everybody.
One last comment on the parking. Because it is going to be, it's a tight parking field with not a lot of buffer area around it. When you're planning it out, when you get to that stage, you probably should start thinking about how you're going to snowplow and what are we going to do with that over the winter?
Yep,
And
absolutely.
You'll lose some spaces if it stays, unfortunately.
Yeah, agreed.
Just have some closing arguments or, just in closing here, we heard some good feedback from residents. I think the common theme here is, you know, we heard about parking. We heard about the height of the building, which I had stressed on. We talked about retail, buffering, that sort of thing. I think if you were to stick with the code and have it no more than 3.5 stories, I think that's gonna fix some of your parking issues. You're gonna lose some units, unfortunately, but if just, for instance, if you just took off the 4th floor in general, that's 12 spaces you won't need. I think parking, with regard to the minimums, this is like the absolute minimum that we put into the proposed code at 1 parking spot per 1-bedroom unit. The 2-bedroom units are a 1.5 parking spots per 2 bedrooms. So basically for every 2-bedroom units, there's 3 spaces. To me, that's like the bare minimum. I mean, every single unit's gonna have a car. That's just, and you're gonna have several units that have 2 cars and you're gonna have guests. So that's just the unfortunate part about when you're putting in 36 units here, that's where we're at. So I think if you were to look at reducing the number of units or the height, which would reduce the number of parking spots required, may or may not need the retail component. There's 5 spaces there. I think we're on the right track with what the committee was understanding, but just look at what the intent of the code was in terms of that height. I think this is the first project proposed. So now I'm seeing how all these pieces, parts play together. Now I'm seeing why they came up with the parking count they did. And this was a national firm that had put together the zoning code. This wasn't just us. This was proposed
I think
to us.
the retail part, I think, is a piece that we've talked about. You know, if we can lose the retail component, then, you know, obviously it's going to make things a lot easier. And I think we can get the building to fit a little bit more comfortably on the site, get the kind of buffer that we need on the backside of the building. But again, the zoning code stipulates that we need to have that piece in there. So if we just use the residential part of that zoning code, in my mind, that's not the most restrictive. You know, it's the retail or the mixed use component that's more restrictive, and we felt that we would kind of use that as our guide to, you know, lay out the building and come up with a feasibility study. So again, if the retail component disappears, then we can add units on the 1st floor. It kind of eases up the loss that we may see on the 4th floor. Obviously, we need to kind of crunch the numbers and see how it works from a financial perspective. Obviously, it needs to pencil for the developer. But you know, those are the kind of things that we were hoping to get tonight, you know, an understanding of how we might be able to approach or what kind of accommodations could be provided so that we can get a project that fits better in the neighborhood. We're not saying that this is the final solution. We're kind of using that as a benchmark, as a starting point. And how do we get to a solution that works for the city and works for the neighbors?
Yes. And you know, I could appreciate you wanting to come in to hear feedback, that you're not looking for an answer today.
Correct.
Which we don't have one. I am chairing the committee that is going to oversee overhauling the zoning codes. And in that committee, we will have public hearings. We're not there yet. We're almost there. So for me to, you know, approve any kind of design, I would have to absolutely hear from the community. We've heard from just a few residents, I think we just heard about this, but
Right.
when we get to that point, I don't know what your schedule is. I mean, this is still a little ways out. But absolutely, we will absolutely have to hear from the community, for the whole citywide zoning. I mean, that's going to go through those hearings. So I feel it's a little premature, but I'm glad I'm seeing this, so I understand how you use the parameters that were laid out.
Can you forecast what your schedule is, or what you're anticipating for the review of the zoning code with the community and
I
implementation?
think we will be able to get to the hearings, the public hearings this year before year end. It's also going to depend on a consultant too. We'll have to come in to present. I would like to see another draft from them before we're ready to engage with the community to fine tune all of that.
Right.
So I could see that being by year end.
Okay.
Nowhere will a final product be by year end, but I think the hearings could begin by then. So we'll at least have a pretty good barometer of where we're at.
If I could just make a couple other comments, and this would, you know, pertain to any, whatever the zoning winds up being in that area, is that with the relation of the parking lot so close to the existing residential, I would hope that when it comes back to planning, you're paying special attention to how this fits directly and plays in with your neighbors. Things such as even parking lot lighting, that we're doing things that we don't have tall poles that are going to be shining in the neighbors, maybe, you know, cutoff shields on parking lot, cutoff shields on the lighting in the back. I'm picturing maybe at the rear of the parking, I know you're showing landscaping, maybe it's some type of solid wall to screen headlights so that in the winter time when leaves fall, they still get some type of shielding back there, things like that, just to kind of soften that interaction between this project and the neighbors.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And those are typical measures that we would take on a project that has single family homes adjacent to it. We want to make sure that the fencing is more solid than, you know, transparent, so that we do prevent car headlights from shining into people's backyards. We want to make sure there's landscaping so it looks nice. You know, the cutoff lamp shields on the lamps is very typical. So those are all, you know, things that we would take into account at the right time. Thank
Thank
you.
everyone for coming. We appreciate it. And is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Rycheck, seconded by Mr. Rock. Ms. Thomas?
Mr. Rycheck,
Yes.
Mr. Casey,
Yes.
Mr. Rock.
Yes.
Adjourned at 8:31.